Mira Kapoor had always considered herself ordinary, a graphic designer in Mumbai who spent her evenings sketching alien landscapes she'd never visit. That changed the night she received the invitation. The envelope materialized on her desk, shimmering with an iridescent glow that hurt to look at directly. Inside, embossed in what looked like liquid starlight, were the words, Embassy of the Interstellar Council. Your presence is requested. Tonight. Midnight. Her boyfriend Arjun was working late again, or so he said. Lately, their relationship felt like two ships passing in the night, his excuses growing more elaborate, his touch more distant. Maybe that's why she went. Maybe she needed something, anything, to feel alive again. The address led her to a building in Colaba she'd walked past 1,000 times, a structure that seemed to shift in her peripheral vision, never quite the same twice. Tonight, the doors stood open, revealing a corridor that stretched impossibly far, walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Inside, beings from across the cosmos mingled. Some were humanoid, others defied description, geometric impossibilities wrapped in consciousness. The air tasted electric, charged with languages her mind couldn't process but somehow understood. That's when she saw him. Kalen stood near a pillar of crystallized time, his form distinctly humanoid but unmistakably other. His skin held the deep blue of Earth's oceans at twilight, marked with constellations that moved across his flesh like living tattoos. His eyes, twin nebulas swirling with gold and violet, fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Mira Kapoor, he said, his voice a harmonic that resonated in her chest. We've been waiting for you. How do you know my name? He smiled, revealing teeth that gleamed like pearls. I know many things about you. Your favorite color is the orange of Mumbai sunsets. You dream in languages you've never learned. And you feel something is missing, a piece of yourself you can't name. Heat crept up her neck. How could this stranger know her so intimately when Arjun barely noticed her anymore? Kalen moved closer, and she caught his scent, ozone and sandalwood, and something indefinably alien that made her dizzy. There's something I must show you, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. Something that will change everything you believe about yourself. He gestured toward a pedestal where an ornate device sat, part jewelry, part mechanism, its surface covered in symbols that seemed to rearrange themselves when she tried to focus on them. It resembled a collar but more intricate, with 3 clasps that glowed with an inner light. Kalen's hand found the small of her back, guiding her forward. The touch sent electricity racing up her spine. Unclasp it, he murmured, his lips dangerously close to her neck. Release what was locked away. Myra's fingers trembled as she reached for the first clasp. Behind her, Kalen's presence was overwhelming, his breath on her skin, his body radiating heat that seemed to call to something deep within her. Are you sure? She whispered. His hand covered hers. I've never been more certain of anything. Together, they released the clasp. The world shattered. The moment the first clasp opened, Myra's knees buckled. Kalen caught her, pulling her against his chest as memories that weren't hers, or were they, flooded her consciousness. She saw herself as a child, not in Mumbai but on a ship between stars. She saw her real mother, a being of luminous grace, and her father, human, their love forbidden but undeniable. She saw the decision to hide her, to lock away her hybrid nature, to give her a chance at a normal life on Earth. What's happening to me? She gasped, clutching Kalen's arms. His skin was warm beneath her fingers, solid and real in a world that had suddenly become uncertain. You're remembering who you truly are, he said softly, lowering her to a nearby bench. He knelt before her, his hands on her knees, thumbs tracing small circles that should have been comforting but instead ignited something more dangerous. Mira, you're not human. Not entirely. You're Erelon, half human, half Celestian. Your parents knew the council would never accept their union, so they hid you here, bound your true nature with that device. She stared at him, at the genuine concern in those impossible eyes. Why would they do that to me? To protect you. To give you a choice. His hands slid up slightly, a gesture of comfort that felt almost too intimate. But now the treaty is at risk. We need you, need what you represent. A bridge between worlds. Mira stood abruptly, putting distance between them, though her body mourned the loss of contact. And what about my life? Arjun? My work? Arjun has been deceiving you, Kalen interrupted, standing. He's an agent of the Separation faction, humans who believe Earth should remain isolated from the galactic community. He was assigned to you 3 years ago, to keep you distracted, to ensure you never discover the truth. The words hit like a physical blow. Every late night, every excuse, every time Arjun had pulled away when she tried to get close, it had all been a lie. Her relationship, her trust, everything she built with him was nothing but surveillance. Tears burned her eyes, but before they could fall, Kalen was there, wiping them away with impossible gentleness. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know this is difficult. How long have you known about me? She asked, searching his face. Years. I volunteered for this assignment the moment I learned of your existence. His confession hung between them. I've watched you from afar, Mira. Seen your strength, your creativity, your kindness. And I've waited for the day you would come here, when fate would finally bring us together. You don't even know me. Don't I? His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing her lower lip. I know you hide your pain behind humor. I know you sketch the stars because something in you remembers home. I know you're lonely in a way that has nothing to do with being alone. The accuracy of his observations stole her breath. Standing this close, she could see the faint luminescence beneath his skin, could feel the pull of something ancient and undeniable. The other 2 clasps, she whispered. What happens when I open them? Your full powers awaken. Your Celestian heritage manifests. You become who you were always meant to be. And if I don't? Then you return to your half-life, and in 3 days, the treaty fails. War comes to Earth. Billions die because the symbol of unity, you, rejected her destiny. Mira laughed bitterly. No pressure then. Kalen's expression softened. I won't force you. This must be your choice. He stepped back, though she sensed the effort it cost him. The embassy is secure. Rest, think. I'll show you to your quarters. The rooms he led her were beyond anything she'd imagined, walls that displayed live feeds of distant galaxies, furniture that adjusted to her body, and a bath that seemed filled with liquid starlight. I'll be right outside, Kalen said from the doorway. If you need anything. Stay. The word escaped before she could stop it. His eyes darkened with something that made her core tighten. Mira. Please. I don't want to be alone right now. Not after learning everything I knew was a lie. He entered, closing the door. All right. But I'll sleep on the... No. She moved to him, emboldened by grief and anger and a need she didn't fully understand. I'm tired of doing what's expected. Tired of being careful. If my whole life has been a lie, then tonight, I want something real. You're vulnerable right now, he said, though his hands found her waist. I don't want to take advantage. She silenced him with a kiss. Kalen groaned against her mouth, his control shattering. He kissed her back with a hunger that felt cosmic, his hands tangling in her hair as he walked her backward toward the wall. The moment her back hit the luminescent surface, it responded, warming, pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. This is dangerous, he murmured between kisses, his lips trailing down her throat. Celestians bond through intimacy, physically, emotionally, spiritually. If we do this, Mira, you'll feel everything I feel. There's no distance, no walls. She tugged at his shirt, desperate to feel his skin against hers. Good. I'm sick of walls. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, searching for certainty. Whatever he found there decided him. With a fluid motion, he lifted her, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her to the bed that seemed to expand to accommodate them. Their clothes dissolved, literally, the fabric breaking down into luminous particles that danced around them before fading. Mira gasped at the sensation, at the sight of Kalen's body, the constellation patterns glowing brighter now, tracing lines across his chest and arms. You're beautiful, she whispered, tracing one of the patterns. Where her fingers touched, sparks of light followed. "So are you." His hand skimmed her side, and she realized her own skin was beginning to glow, faint patterns emerging that mirrored his. "This is your celestial nature responding. To me. To us." He kissed her slowly this time, thoroughly, mapping her mouth as his hands explored her body with reverent attention. Every touch sparked something deeper than physical pleasure. She could feel his emotions bleeding into hers. His longing, years of watching and wanting. His fear that she would reject him, reject this. His absolute certainty that she was meant to be his. "I can feel you," she gasped as his mouth moved lower, across her collarbone, between her breasts. "Inside my mind." "And I feel you," he murmured against her skin. "Your pain. Your courage. Your desire." He looked up, eyes blazing. "Stop me if this is too much." But it wasn't enough. She pulled him up, needing his mouth on hers again, needing to feel the full weight of him. When they finally joined, the room exploded with light, their patterns synchronizing, pulsing together in waves of gold and violet. The physical pleasure was intense, but it paled compared to the emotional and spiritual connection. Mira felt herself opening to him completely, every fear, every dream, every secret longing laid bare. And in return, she knew him, his dedication to peace, his loneliness despite being surrounded by thousands, his absolute conviction that she was his destiny the moment he'd seen her file. "Kaylin," she cried out, her body arcing as pleasure crested. "I'm here," he breathed, his forehead against hers. "I've got you. Let go." When she did, it felt like shattering and becoming whole simultaneously. Through the bond, she felt his own climax, felt the way her pleasure amplified his, creating a feedback loop that left them both trembling and gasping. They lay tangled together after, the patterns on their skin slowly fading to a gentle glow. Kaylin traced lazy circles on her hip, his other hand playing with her hair. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. Mira considered. She'd just betrayed Arjun, though learning their relationship was a surveillance operation complicated that guilt significantly. She'd bonded with an alien diplomat she'd met hours ago. She'd opened herself completely to someone in a way that terrified her. "No," she said, surprised by her certainty. "This feels right. Like coming home." He kissed her temple. "That's the bond. We're connected now, Mira. Not just emotionally but spiritually. You'll feel me even when we're apart. My emotions, my physical state, my you," she finished. "I'll feel you. And I'll feel you. Always." His arms tightened around her. "But this doesn't mean you have to open the other clasps. I meant what I said, this is your choice." She was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Finally, she said, "Tell me about the treaty. About what's really at stake." Kaylin sighed, sitting up and pulling her with him so she was nestled against his chest. 300 years ago, your grandmother, a Celestian diplomat named Riva, fell in love with a human scientist named Thomas Chen. Their love was genuine, but it violated every protocol. Celestians and humans weren't supposed to mix. The genetic differences were too vast. "But they did anyway," Mira prompted. "They did. And they had a daughter, your mother, Alara. She was the first successful human-Celestian hybrid. Proof that our species could not just coexist but combine." His hand stroked her back as he spoke. The council saw opportunity. If hybrids were possible, then maybe full integration was too. They proposed a treaty, gradual introduction of Earth to the galactic community, with human-Celestian unions becoming legal, celebrated even. So what went wrong? The separation faction. On both sides. Humans who feared losing their identity, being absorbed into something larger. Celestians who believed in genetic purity, in maintaining the old ways. His voice hardened. They've sabotaged every attempt at progress. Assassinations, propaganda, terrorist attacks. 3 years ago, they murdered your parents. Mira jerked upright. What? Kaylin's eyes held infinite sadness. I'm sorry. I thought you knew. Their shuttle was sabotaged. The official report called it mechanical failure, but we have evidence it was the separation faction. They wanted to eliminate the symbol of unity, your family line. Tears streamed down her face as memories flooded back, parents she'd forgotten, a funeral she'd been told was a dream, a grief that had been locked away with her identity. Why can't I remember them clearly? The binding device. It didn't just hide your powers. It suppressed memories that might trigger your awakening. He wiped her tears. I'm sorry to cause you this pain. The other clasps, she whispered. If I open them, will I remember everything? Yes. But Mira, there's more you need to know. He took her hands. In 2 days, the Council convenes to vote on Earth's fate. Stay isolated or face annihilation for harboring the terrorist cell. The only thing that could sway the vote is you, standing before them, living proof that unity is possible. That love transcends species. So I'm a political pawn. No. Your hope. There's a difference. Before she could respond, alarms blared through the embassy. Kalen was on his feet instantly, clothes materializing on his body through some technology Mira couldn't fathom. What is it? She asked, struggling to dress. A breach. Stay here. He was already at the door. Like hell. Her own clothes reformed, and she followed him into the corridor where chaos reigned. Diplomats of various species ran in organized patterns, while security forces deployed weapons that hummed with contained energy. It's the separation faction, Kalen said, reading something on a device that materialized from his wrist. They're here for you. An explosion rocked the building. Through the smoke, figures emerged, humans and Celestians working together, united in their hatred of unity. Leading them was Arjun. Hello, Mira, her ex-boyfriend said, raising a weapon that crackled with lethal intent. Sorry about the deception. But you're too dangerous to live. Time seemed to slow as Arjun's finger tightened on the trigger. Mira stood frozen, betrayal warring with disbelief. This was the man she'd shared her bed with, her dreams, 3 years of her life, and he'd come to kill her. Kalen moved like liquid lightning, pulling her aside as energy bolts scorched the air where she'd stood. They rolled behind a pillar as more shots followed, chunks of crystalline material exploding around them. You can't run forever. Arjun shouted, advancing with a squad of mixed human and Celestian extremists. The bloodline ends tonight. There's a service passage, Kalen whispered urgently, pressing something into her hand, a small device that pulsed warmly. 50 meters down this hall, third panel on the left. It leads to the vault where the binding device was stored. Go. I'm not leaving you. You have to. His eyes bore into hers, intense and desperate. The device has a counterpart, a key that can fully unlock your heritage. If they get it, they can destroy any other hybrids. If you get it. He cupped her face. You become unstoppable. Now go. He kissed her fiercely, then pushed her toward the corridor and stepped out into the firefight. Through their bond, Mira felt his determination, his fear for her, and his willingness to die if it bought her time. She ran. Behind her, energy weapons lit the embassy like a violent thunderstorm. She felt each hit Kalen took through their connection, sharp bursts of pain in her shoulder, her thigh. He was hurt but alive, buying her precious seconds. The third panel opened at her touch, revealing a descending stairwell that pulsed with bioluminescence. Mira plunged down, taking steps 3 at a time, until she reached a chamber that took her breath away. The vault was massive, filled with artifacts from 1,000 worlds. But at its center, on a pedestal of light, sat a collar identical to the one she'd partially unclasped, except this one was complete, whole, radiating power that made her skin tingle even from a distance. Magnificent, isn't it? A voice said behind her. Mira spun to find a Celestian woman emerging from the shadows, tall, regal, with patterns that swirled in deep crimson across skin the color of midnight. Who are you? My name is Vera. I'm your aunt. Your mother's sister. The woman's smile was cold. I'm also the leader of the separation faction. The world tilted. You killed your own sister? I saved my species, Vera corrected, circling like a predator. Elara was a beautiful mistake, and you're an abomination. Diluting Celestian purity with human weakness. She gestured to the device. This is the Genesis collar. When activated by someone of the true bloodline, it can rewrite genetic code. I'm going to use it to purge Earth of hybrid potential forever. No more mixed children. No more pollution of our race. You're insane. I'm a preservationist. Vera moved toward the collar. The Council thinks integration is evolution. I know it's extinction. Once we merge with humans, we cease to be Celestian. In 1,000 years, we'll be gone, absorbed, diluted, forgotten. Above, an explosion rocked the vault. Through the bond, Mira felt Kalen's pain intensify. He was losing. Your diplomat pet is dying, Vera said casually, reading her expression. Such a shame. He was quite devoted to you. But then, Celestians bond for life. Once you connected, he couldn't help himself. She smiled cruelly. Did he tell you that? How the bond would make him obsessed with you. How he couldn't refuse you anything now. Doubt crept in. Had Kalen's feelings been real or just biological compulsion triggered by their intimacy? Through the bond, she felt his response, a surge of emotion so pure it brought tears to her eyes. Not compulsion. Choice. He'd chosen her before the bond, and he chose her still. He loves me, Mira said with certainty. Love? Vera laughed. Such a human concept. It will die with your species when I'm done. She reached for the Genesis collar. Mira moved without thinking, her body responding with speed she didn't know she possessed. She reached the collar first, her hands closing around it. Power surged through her, not the gentle awakening from before, but a tsunami of energy that lit her up from within. Vera's eyes widened. No! It should have rejected you, you're not pure. But the collar knew her. It had been waiting for her. As Mira held it, visions flooded her mind, her grandmother Riva designing it as a bridge, not a weapon, her mother Elara adding her own genetic code as a key, generations of hope crystallized into this single artifact. It was never yours, Mira gasped as power filled her. It was made for us. For hybrids. We're not the dilution, we're the next step. Vera snarled and lunged, but Mira was faster. She unclasped the second lock on her own binding device, and her Celestian nature roared to life. Her skin blazed with patterns that outshone Vera's, her senses expanding until she could feel the entire embassy, every heartbeat, every thought. She felt Kalen 3 floors up, struggling against Arjun. Felt the embassy staff hiding in safe rooms. Felt the extremists throughout the building, their hate like acid in her expanded awareness. You can't stop us all, Vera hissed, pulling a blade that shimmered with dark energy. Even if you kill me, the movement will continue. I don't want to kill you, Mira said, and meant it. I want to show you what you're trying to destroy. She opened her mind through the Genesis collar, projecting not just to Vera but to every consciousness in the embassy. They saw through her eyes, a childhood of 2 worlds, the joy of her parents' love, the beauty of combined cultures. They felt her pain at their loss, her confusion at her hidden identity, her terror and wonder at awakening. And they felt Kalen, his unwavering belief in unity, his love for her that transcended species, his willingness to die for a future where children like her could live openly. The blade fell from Vera's hand. Throughout the embassy, weapons lowered. Human and Celestian extremists stared at each other, seeing, truly seeing, for the first time. Enough, Mira whispered, releasing the projection. She swayed, exhausted, and felt Kalen rushing toward her through their bond. But she had one more thing to do. She placed the Genesis collar around her neck and unclasped the third and final lock of her binding device. The transformation was instantaneous and absolute. Power erupted from her in waves of golden light, her patterns blazing across her skin in intricate beauty. Her consciousness expanded until she touched the minds of everyone on Earth, showing them the stars, showing them their galactic neighbors, showing them a future of infinite possibility. When the light faded, Mira stood transformed. Still human. Still Celestian. Both and neither in something entirely new. Kalen reached her first, pulling her into his arms. Through their bond, his pride and love overwhelmed her. "You're magnificent," he breathed. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Good," he said with a tired smile. "The best leaders are." Above them, Arjun appeared at the vault entrance, weapon lowered, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'm so sorry. What I saw, what you showed us, I was so wrong." Mira looked at him, feeling pity more than anger. "You weren't the only one. But now you know better. What will you do with that knowledge?" "Whatever I can to make things right." The council chamber was unlike anything on Earth. It existed in a pocket dimension, a vast sphere where representatives from 1,000 worlds floated in their preferred environments, some in liquid, others in gas, some in conditions that would instantly kill humans. Mira stood at the center in a bubble of Earth-standard atmosphere, Kalen at her side, no longer as her guide but as her equal. Her transformation had stabilized over the past 2 days, her body finding balance between her two natures. The patterns on her skin remained, elegant spirals that glowed softly, marking her as something unique in all the galaxy, a bridge made flesh. The Council's lead arbiter, an entity of crystalline thought named Thresh, spoke in harmonics that the translation field converted to sound. "Mira Kapoor, you stand accused of existing. How do you plead?" Despite the gravity, Mira almost smiled. "Guilty. And I'm not sorry." A ripple of surprise crossed the chamber. Clearly, contrition was expected. "For 300 years, Mira continued, her voice amplified to reach every corner of the sphere, you've debated whether humans and Celestians can coexist. You've written treaties, held summits, made endless plans. Meanwhile, my grandmother loved. My parents loved. And they created me, living proof that your question is already answered. You are an aberration," a voice called from the Celestian section, not Vera, who sat in restraints but quiet, but another elder. "One successful hybrid does not constitute viability." "Then let's test that." Mira touched the Genesis collar, still at her throat, and pulled up data that flooded the chamber's displays. "Since my awakening, I've accessed this device's true function. It's not a weapon, it's a scanner. According to its records, there are currently 4,723 human Celestian hybrids on Earth. Most don't know what they are. Their powers are latent, bound by devices like mine or suppressed by genetic variants. But they exist." Chaos erupted. Delegates shouted in 1,000 languages. The chamber's translation field struggled to keep up. Thresh's crystals hummed for silence. "This is impossible." The genetic compatibility rate was underestimated, Mira interrupted. "Because nobody wanted it to be true. The isolationists saw us as threats. The integrationists saw us as political tools. Nobody saw us as people." She looked around the chamber. "We're not asking for permission to exist. We already do. The question is whether you'll accept us or spend the next 1,000 years trying to kill us." "And if we choose annihilation," the Celestian elder challenged. "Earth has no defenses against our fleet." Kalen stepped forward, his hand finding Mira's. "Then you'll have to annihilate me too. And the 300 other Celestian diplomats who've bonded with humans in the last decade. And the thousands of council members whose mates are from other species." He smiled grimly. "You built a galactic community on unity. You can't cherry-pick which unity counts." Through their bond, Mira felt his absolute certainty. He would die beside her if it came to that. The thought made her squeeze his hand tighter. "There is another option," Vera spoke for the first time, her voice heavy with defeat. "Accept that we were wrong. That evolution isn't always comfortable but is always inevitable. The universe changes, and we change with it, or we become extinct." She looked at Mira. "My niece showed me something in that vault. She showed me that love, that ridiculous human concept, is more powerful than purity. It creates where purity only preserves. And preservation without creation is just death by another name. The elder who'd challenged Mira sputtered. You, Vera? You led the separation faction. And I was wrong. Vera stood, her restraints falling away, apparently more symbolic than functional. I've spent 3 centuries fighting change because I was terrified of loss. But watching Mira, seeing what she's capable of, what she represents. She smiled sadly. She's more Celestian than I am. And more human. She's the best of both. Thresh's crystals pulse thoughtfully. A compelling argument. But this council makes decisions based on evidence, not emotion. Mira Kapoor, can you demonstrate the viability of hybrid existence? Can you prove you're not an anomaly? Mira looked at Kalen, who nodded encouragingly through their bond. She took a breath and activated the Genesis collar's full function. Across Earth, 4,000 hybrids gasped as their binding devices, physical or genetic, dissolved. Powers awakened. Memories returned. In bedrooms and offices, on streets and in schools, people transformed, their Celestian heritage blazing to life. And Mira felt them all. Through the Genesis collar, she became a nexus, connecting hybrid to hybrid, creating a network of consciousness that spanned the globe. She showed the council not just one viable hybrid but thousands, each unique, each powerful, each choosing in that moment to embrace both their heritages. There's your evidence, Mira said, her voice echoing through the network, speaking for thousands. We exist. We're viable. We're not going away. Accept us or spend eternity fighting a war you've already lost. The silence that followed was profound. Then, slowly, Thresh's crystals began to chime, the crystalline species version of laughter. You have fire, young hybrid. Very well. The council will vote. Thresh's attention swept the chamber. All in favor of accepting Earth into the galactic community, with full rights for hybrid citizens? Mira held her breath. Through the bond, she felt Kalen's tension matching hers. Lights began to appear across the chamber, green for yes, red for no. The count was close, agonizingly so. But when the final vote registered, green outnumbered red by a slim margin. The motion carries, Thresh declared. Earth is hereby recognized as a protectorate world with full rights of advancement. Hybrid citizens are granted full legal status across all council territories. Let the records show that unity prevails. Kalen pulled Mira into his arms, lifting her off her feet as joy flooded their bond. Around them, supporters cheered in various forms, some vocally, others through color changes or harmonic vibrations. But Mira barely noticed. Through the network, she felt 4,000 hybrids celebrating, crying, embracing their true selves for the first time. Families divided by fear were reuniting. Lovers who'd hidden their natures could finally be open. Children who'd felt wrong could finally understand why. We did it, she whispered against Kalen's chest. You did it, he corrected, pulling back to look at her. I just stood beside you. That's all I needed. 6 months later, Mira stood in the same Mumbai apartment where her journey had begun. But she wasn't packing to leave, she was unpacking to stay. The embassy had offered her a position as Earth's first hybrid ambassador. She'd accepted, on the condition that she remain based on Earth, among the people she'd sworn to represent. Kalen had immediately requested reassignment to her staff. Nobody had been surprised. This goes here? Kalen asked, holding up a plant that definitely wasn't from Earth, a gift from a grateful council delegate. Its leaves shifted colors in response to emotion, currently glowing a warm orange. Next to the window, Mira directed, arranging books on a shelf. Regular books and data crystals, human literature and Celestian philosophy side by side. They'd moved in together last month, a decision that shocked no one who'd seen them together. The bond between them had only deepened, evolving from the intense passion of new connection to something richer, more complex. They still fought, Kalen was infuriatingly protective, and Mira had a stubborn streak a mile wide, but they always reconnected, literally feeling each other's hurt until they worked through it. Arjun had visited once, weeks after the council vote, to formally apologize. He'd left the separation faction, what remained of it, and was working with a refugee organization, helping displaced hybrids find their families. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. Vera had surprised everyone by becoming one of the integration program's strongest advocates. Turned out, centuries of fighting change had left her exhausted. She'd written Mira a letter calling her the niece I should have protected and pledging to spend my remaining centuries undoing the damage I caused. The doorbell rang, an actual doorbell. Mira had insisted on maintaining some Earth normalcy, and she opened it to find a nervous young woman standing there. "Are you Ambassador Kapoor?" the woman asked in accented English. "I felt you in the network during the awakening. I'm like you, I'm hybrid, and I don't know what to do." Mira smiled and stepped aside. "Come in. Let's talk." Over the next hours, 3 more hybrids arrived, then 5, then a dozen. Word had spread that Myra's door was always open. She listened to their stories, helped them understand their powers, connected them with others facing similar challenges. Kalen ordered food, far too much food from a dozen different restaurants, and turned their apartment into an impromptu gathering space. By evening, 30 hybrids filled the rooms, talking, laughing, sharing experiences. Standing in her kitchen, watching Celestian and human neighbors bond over snacks and stories, Mira felt something settle in her chest. This was what her parents had died for. This moment, this connection, this proof that different worlds could not just coexist but thrive together. "What are you thinking?" Kalen asked, sliding his arms around her waist from behind. Through the bond, he already knew, but she said it anyway. That we're just getting started. That there's so much work ahead. Building schools for hybrid children, establishing legal frameworks, negotiating with governments, helping 4,000 people navigate 2 identities. And, he prompted. She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd believed in her before she believed in herself. "And I can't wait. Every challenge, every struggle, it's worth it." She kissed him softly. "Especially with you beside me." "Always," he murmured against her lips. "Across every star, in every life, always." From the living room, someone called for Myra's help with a manifestation issue. She pulled away reluctantly, but Kalen's hand caught hers. "Tonight," he said, his meaning clear through the bond, a promise of intimacy, of connection, of stolen moments between the chaos of their new lives. "Tonight," she agreed, heat flooding her at the images he projected. Even after 6 months, the passion between them hadn't dimmed. If anything, it had intensified, deepened, becoming something sacred. She squeezed his hand once more, then went to help her people, because that's what they were now. Her responsibility, her family, her purpose. Outside the window, stars were beginning to appear in Mumbai's evening sky. Mira paused to look at them, feeling the vast network of consciousness spanning Earth, connecting hybrid to hybrid. 4,000 lights in the darkness, and growing every day as more humans discovered their Celestian heritage, as more interspecies couples chose love over fear. Her phone buzzed with a message from the Council. Another world wanted Earth's guidance on integration. Another species wanted to learn from their example. The work would never end. There would always be another crisis, another challenge, another group who needed help understanding that different didn't mean lesser. But Mira smiled, feeling Kalen's love through their bond, hearing the laughter of hybrids finding community in her living room, seeing the stars that represented infinite possibility. She'd unclasped the device and found herself. Now, she would help others do the same. The future was uncertain, messy, complicated, but it was theirs. And that made it beautiful. The end.